The topic that we are going to look today is ratios and proportions. So what is ratio? Ratio is nothing but relationship between two variables. You will often face a question that they will give you the A value and a B value and ask you to find the ratio between them. Let's take A is equal to 40, they will give you as B is equal to 20. They will ask you what is the ratio between A and B. They will ask you to find A and B. Nothing but 40 is to 20. What is the other way in which you can represent the ratio? In fractions. A is to B is nothing but A by B. So 40 by 20, which is nothing but 2 by 1. So the ratio between A and B is 2 is to 1. So the one main thing that you should know is that let's take, we are multiplying the ratio by 2 on both sides. So 2 is to 1 is the one that we already have. We are multiplying by 2 on both sides. So it becomes 4 into 2. Even though we have multiplied by 2 on both sides, the ratio, prime ratio will always be the same. If you're going to solve it again, it's going to become again 2 into 1. Let's take I'm multiplying by 10 on both sides. So it becomes 20 is to 10. Even though we have multiplied by 10 on both sides, still the prime ratio will always be 2 is to 1. So this shows that though we multiply by x1, let's take any variable on both sides, the ratio of A is to B will always remain the same. Similarly for the division also. Let's take 1 is to 3. Okay. So let's say I'm dividing it by 1. So even if you divide it by 1, I'm just taking this as an example. You can divide it by 3, you can divide it by 10 or whatever be that, the prime ratio will always be the same. So this is similar to the multiplication. So what we say is here is, let's take 1, 3 and we are dividing by the variable 2. So whatever you divide it by, your prime ratio will always be the same. So what this means is that x1 by the variable by x2 by. Even though you multiply and divide it by the same numbers on both the sides, the prime ratio will always be the same. This concept you should always remember. This will be helpful if you are going to solve with the future sums. The another type of question you would have seen is A is to B is to C is to D. So what is this? B and C we tell it as means and A and D we tell it as extremes. So you could have seen a lot of questions they are asking for. They will give you this equation and they ask you to find the ratio between the means or ratio between the extremes. How you can represent it? We know that A by B we will represent as A by B and C is to D we represent as C by D, which can be solved as A into D, C into B. So you should know this concept because there will be a lot of cross multiplication involved in ratios. So understanding of this concept is a must. After this we are going to talk about componendo and dividendo rule. As of now I am going to just tell you what is the formula for it. In the future problems we will be solving it, how to do it, how to apply the componendo and dividendo. So as we know, if A by B equal to C by D, then the formula is A plus B by A minus B, which is equal to C plus D by C minus D. As of now, just know the formula. In the future sums, let's solve a couple of questions based on this formula to understand the concept better. Now to understand the ratio and proportions, let's solve a couple of questions that you commonly face in an aptitude exam. So this is a common type of problem where you will face it in exam. So where they will give you a ratio of A is to B and B is to C and they will ask you to find A is to B is to C. So there will be a lot of sums where they will ask you to find the highest common factor, multiply it on both sides. It's all very confusing at a point. So I will tell you an easy way in which you can easily find the A is to B is to C. So what they have given, A is to B is 2 is to 3. B is to C is 3 is to 4. So generally how people solve is that we have to get a common between both the B's. So which is 3 here, so we can easily find it out. Sometimes there will be a higher number here, so you have to multiply it by the equal number of both sides so that B is equal and then we will find the A is to B is to C. But the simple trick is that do this. So to find A is to B is to C, what do we do is 3 into 2, 6, 3 3s are 9, 4 3s are 12. which is nothing but 2:3:4. So what do we do here? To find the A, we are multiplying A and B. To find the B, we are multiplying both these B. To find the C, we are multiplying B into C. So if you remember this, or else remember these arrows, you are multiplying the first number and the second one, multiplying it across and this. Remember this inverted N. If you remember this, it's easy to find the A is to B is to C. Let's solve another problem to understand this better. So what they have given, x is to y is 3:4, y is to z is x is to 9, find x is to z. So let's find x is to y is to z now. So how do you do it? X is to y is 3:4, y is to z is 8:9. So remember our inverted N, that's where we are going to do it. So 3 into 8 is to 8 into 4 is to 4 into 9. So which is nothing but 24, 32 and 36. We can further solve it. So we are doing it with 4, where 6 is to 8 is to 9. So are they asking for y, x is to y is to y? No, they are asking for x is to z. So which is nothing but, which is x and this is z, which is 6 is to 9. This can be further solved as 2 is to 3. So further equation is 2 is to 3. So how do we do that? When they give you the x, y, z, just write it. Remember this inverted N. This is for a 3 variable problem. So you do this inverted N, multiply it accordingly. Remember this. Once you solve it, you will get the final value of x is to z. They will ask you like y is to z. You just read what the question they have given, and based on that you will answer. So this is a simple trick for a 3-digit like x is to y is to z. Let's go for a higher digit to understand it better. In this question, you see that they have given a is to b, b is to c, c is to d, and asking you to find a is to b is to c is to d. So in the previous question we thought that how to find it out for a is to b is to c through that inverted N. There is a similar technique here to find it for a is to b is to c is to d. So generally how people solve it, like the 3-digit way, they will do it, take the common multiplication, multiply it across, and you will find. That's just exorbitant technique where it will take a lot of time for you to solve. The technique that I am going to tell you is very easy once you remember it. So let's take a is to b is 2 is to 3, b is to c is 4 is to 5, c is to d is 6 is to 7. So how we are going to find it for a is to b is to c is to d? So similarly, first to find a, we are going to multiply a, b and c. So a, b, c is to, for b we are going to multiply b, b and c. For c we are going to multiply b, c and c. And for d you are going to multiply b, c and d. So how to remember this? So for a, both the extremes, how we are going to do? You are going to multiply it in a vertical manner like a, b, c, b, c, d. So for now b, so you are going to start it from b and move it to your left. So b, b, c for b. For c we are going to move like b, c, c. Remember these two arrows alone. So you're going to go this way, and you're going to go here and then here. So if you remember these arrows for this, it will be easy for you to do. So now let's start doing the question. So for a, b, c, it's 2 into 4 into 6. And for b, b, c, it's nothing but 3 into 4 into 6. For b, c, c, it's 3 into 5 into 6. And for b, c, d, it's nothing but 3 into 5 into 7. So once you solve this answer, you will know what is the value of a is to b is to c is to d. So one thing that you should understand here, how the arrow is moving here. So once you know this thoroughly, it will be easy for you. Whatever be the bigger value they get, all you have to do is multiply it and reduce it to a smaller ratio. So once you do that, you will easily get the value for a is to b is to c. there is no need of you finding the highest common factor and multiplying it on the right side or left side or whatever it is. Remember this. For this, it will be very easy for you. So in both the concept, you should remember, let's say for A is to B is to C, or for A is to B is to C is to D, you should remember how these arrows are moving so that you can easily multiply it. So we know that in A is to B is to C, we took an inverted N, and for this, I told you for the extremes, you have to multiply it vertically, and for the middle both, you have to know how the arrows are going. So once you know this, it will be easy for you to find it. Let's solve another problem. So this is a common type of problem. What they are given? It's like divide 600 in the ratio of 2 and x. So let's take, we are taking it as 2x and 3x. They are telling that we have to divide 600 into these two. So it's nothing but 2x plus 3x is equal to 600, and we know that 5x is equal to 600 and x is equal to 120. So we know that x is 120. So how we are going to divide it? 2x and we have 3x. So we know that x is 120, 2 into 120 which is 240, 3 into 120 which is nothing but 360. How do we know whether this answer is right? So if you add these two, you should get this value 600. So once you get the 600, it means you have divided it equally. So in the last video of ratios and proportion part 1, so we dealt with the basic formulas that we see in ratios and proportion, and we also solved A is to B is to C and A is to B is to C is to D. So let us solve few more problems to understand the basic concepts of ratios and proportions better. So the question that they have given is, if A by 2 equal to B by 3 equal to C by 5, then find A is to B is to C. So for first, what we have to do is A by 2 equal to B by 3 equal to C by 5, equal it to a variable called x. So what we do now? A by 2 equal to x, which is nothing but A is equal to 2x. Similarly, B by 3 is equal to x, so B is equal to 3x. C by 5 is equal to x, so C is equal to 5x. So A is to B is to C is nothing but 2x is to 3x is to 5x, which is nothing but 2 is to 3 is to 5. So if you are a person who is solving ratio and proportion for a very long time, then as you see the question itself, you will directly write it as 2 is to 3 is to 5. So if you are a person who don't know much, what you have to do is that take the question, equal it to a constant, then separately do it as A by 2 equal to x, B by 3 is equal to x, C by 5 is equal to x. Then they are asking us to find the A is to B is to C. Now whatever the values that you have got here, you will put it here, and that's how you will find it. Sometimes you will get a bigger ratio here, solve it to a lower value which equates to the option that they have provided in the question. Let's solve another problem. So the next question is, if 3a is equal to 4b is equal to 5c, then find A is to B is to C. In the last question, we found that everything was in fraction, we equated it to x. The similar method, you are going to use it here. So what do you do as usual? 3a is equal to 4b is equal to 5c. As usual, equating it to a constant, let's say x. So 3a is equal to x, so a is equal to x by 3. Similarly, 4b is equal to x and b is equal to x by 4. Similarly, 5c is equal to x and c is equal to x by 5. So what they are asking for? A is to B is to C. So which is nothing but x by 3 is to x by 4 is to x by 5. So in the earlier video, we told that how we multiply a common number across the ratio will remain the same. So we are going to take the LCM of 3, 4 and 5. So we take it as 4 3 are 12, 60. X by 3, 60 into x by 4 and 60 into x by 5. So it goes for 20, this goes for 1, 5, this goes for 12. So it is nothing but 20 is to 15 is to 12. So your A is to B is to C is nothing but 20 is to 15 is to 12. So in previous sum, what we did, the fractions was given, we directly equated it to an x and automatically got the answer here. In this case, they have given it as a value like this. You will get your ratios in fractions here. What do? You will use it as a common multiplier across the ratio, then reduce it to a common value here. So sometimes this will be non-reducible. If it's like that, if it's 20, 15 and 12 won't go with a common divisor. So we will stop it here. When you find this in option, you can directly answer it. Let's solve another question. So the next question that they have asked is, if a 10% of x is equal to 30% of y, then x is to y is what? So what they have given in the question, 10% of x is equal to 30% percent of y. So we know that x is to y is nothing but x divided by y. So let's find x divided by y here. So 1x is equal to 3y. So x divided by y is nothing but 3 by 1. So obviously x is to y is nothing but 3 is to 1. So once you find the question, always remember x is to y is nothing but x by y. So once you find the fraction of it, that is nothing but the same as their ratio. Let's solve another problem. So the next question is, if 2 is to x is to 3 is to 4, then x is equal to what? So if you would remember in our earlier video, a is to b versus to c is to d. Means and extreme. So what we did, a into d is equal to b into c. Similar thing we are going to do here. So what they have given, 2 is to x is to 3 is to 4. So multiply the means and extremes. So 2 into 4 is equal to 3 into x. So 4 2s are 8 equal to 3 into x. So x is equal to 8 by 3, which is nothing but 2.67 approximately. So nothing but 2 is to 2.67 is to 3 is to 4. So your x is nothing but 2.67. So once they give the question, or if you remember this formula, irrespective of whether they didn't give d or b or c, you can easily find the missing variable here. You have to substitute it as x and find the value of x. Let's solve another problem. So the next question that they have given is, what is the inverse ratio of 3 is to 2 is to 1? Inverse ratio is nothing but 3 is to 2 is to 1. Inverse ratio of it is 1 is to 3 is to 1 by 2 is to 1 by 1. So what you have to do, in a previous sum we saw how we multiply a common thing here. So for 3 and 2 we know that 6 is there. So 1 by 3 is to 6 into 1 by 2 is to 6 into 1 by 1. So 3, 2. 2 is to 3 is to 6. So the inverse ratio of 3 is to 2 is to 1 is nothing but 2 is to 3 is to 6. So what are the other questions that they can ask instead of inverse ratio? They can ask duplicate ratio. What is duplicate ratio? Is nothing but square of it. So square of 3 is to 2 is to 1. So similarly, what other thing they can ask? Triplicate. Triplicate is nothing but cube of the same ratio. What are the other thing they can ask? Subduplicate. Subduplicate is nothing but square root. So you have to remember what is inverse, what is duplicate, what is triplicate, and what is subduplicate. So these are the very small questions that you can find in any of the examinations. Let's solve another sum. So the next question they have asked is, find the fourth proportional to the 5, 8 and 15. So they have given question like that. We know that a is to b is to c is to d. So they are asking for the fourth proportional. Fourth proportional is nothing but d. So we know that 5 is to 8, 15 is to x. So we are going to keep d as x here. So as usual, multiply the mean and extremes. 5 into x is equal to 8 into 15. X is equal to 24. What are the other ways they can ask the same question? Instead of fourth proportional, they can ask for the second proportional. Second proportional is nothing but b. They can ask for the third proportional, which is nothing but c. So whatever be the question is, if you remember this, either of they would have definitely given you the three values. You have to find the missing one. So it will be very easy for you to solve the problems. So today we dealt with some of the simple problems one may face in ratios and proportions. In the upcoming videos, we will be solving a lot of tougher problems. So if you are a person who is looking for a job, kindly register in our freshersworld.com. Kindly like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.